Hello there. So this one is called It's Okay Not to Be Okay. And just so you understand how it works for me, when I make these films, is usually I'm waking up, which is often a very slow process for me. It's like starting deep beneath the sea and steadily and gradually rising towards the surface of the ocean. And the moment that I break the surface and I see the sky above me, that is when I can call myself awake. So it's not an easy process for me, but in that time I get my insight about what it is I'm supposed to communicate, and sometimes I write it, sometimes I make a film, sometimes I speak to someone face to face about it. It's always different. So the memory that comes up for me is this: someone who is very dear to me. We have a phone call, and the very first words that come out of her mouth is, "Are you okay?" And my response to that is very telling, because actually I find it very difficult to come out with words that feel right, that explain how I'm feeling. It's really tricky. And there are times in situations, especially in conversation, where someone says something and I don't reply, and it's not as I'm being rude or ignorant, and it's not as I don't understand or didn't hear what they said. It's just I find that some of the things people say provoke such a deep inquiry in me that my attention shifts from the conversation to my grappling with whatever it is that I've just heard the person say, my contemplation, my meditation, my consideration of what they say. It's like I can't just come up with a glib answer which doesn't mean anything. I have to go right deeply into it. That seems to be the way that I'm made. So I think a lot of you know that I've had a love affair with the Korean culture, which has been going on for a year now. And it all began when my partner and I were sitting in front of a screen, and it was Netflix app that was opened, and something came up, and it was called Strong Girl Bong-soon. And I just laughed, because the idea of somebody being called Bong-soon, I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. Going back to the 1970s, the word bong referred to a particular Indonesian device that was very popular at that time for people to smoke cannabis with. And indeed, you can go into a convenience store in America these days and you will find that they have like a vast array of these things called bongs, made out of glass, plastic and such like. So, and the word soon, well, that means not later. So I just had this image in my mind of a bong being available already very soon. So that triggered something in me, and that's been a whole kind of there's so much in that for me, actually. But then there's actually the TV program itself, which is not like anything I'd ever seen in my life. It was like, what am I watching? This is just so completely different. What is going on here? So that was the very first one, and we ended up watching all 16 episodes of it, utterly mesmerized, transported, taken into this completely different universe of people in Korea being Koreans. And it's like, oh my goodness me, wow. And then, in a sense, the end of that story, although it hasn't ended, is there is now a TV show on Netflix, and it's called Strong Girl Nam-soon. And I think it's made by the same people. And so 6 years later, in the present day, they've released this show with an almost identical title. And yes, it's got a theme which is running through both, which is about a girl who is strong. But the 6 years of growth and evolution in that industry and in that culture is like, oh my goodness me, it's so utterly extraordinary. And then it feels like a very intensely personal gift that's been handed to me, because the show doesn't begin in Korea at all. It begins in a country I'm also very, very fascinated with, and it's Mongolia. And it's about a girl who lives in a yurt in Mongolia, and yet the connection with Korea is very evident. And indeed, in time, she leaves this place where she's grown up because she discovers that her roots are in Korea. So this is just another utterly extraordinary journey. And my feeling about the Koreans and their culture and the way that they do their fiction is they go deeper than anyone else. They do. In fact, I find the majority of shows that come from the American continent to be far too lightweight for me to even contemplate, with some notably wonderful exceptions. And Atypical and Young Sheldon do spring instantly to mind. There are others, but those are the ones that spring most instantly to mind as something with vast depth and therefore extraordinary interest. But what I really want to talk to you about is the third Korean TV show, which comes out sometime between Strong Girl Bong-soon and Strong Girl Nam-soon, and that is It's Okay Not to Be Okay, which is the title of this film. Because I hosted a retreat 3 weeks ago. That's what I was doing 3 weeks ago. I was hosting a retreat with plant medicines in one of the most extraordinary venues that I've ever encountered, which I'm so fortunate to be able to host my retreat. So very fortunate. The group of people who selected nature's medicine as their vehicle turned out to be, well, it's rather like Dance Church in Glastonbury. It only ever gets more extraordinary. Nature's medicine retreats only ever get more extraordinary. It's the same phenomenon. We go deeper, we go deeper. The colour of the people are more utterly mind-blowing. So this is what was happening 3 weeks ago, and I normally suggest to people it might take a couple of weeks, 2 weeks to process, to integrate everything that's gone on in the retreat. And here I am 3 weeks later, and I am still integrating, and it has been a really surprising journey. Surprising just how challenging it's been, seeing as this is something I've been intimately involved with for such a long time now in my life. Retreats, yes, that is me. I am retreats. And most people have no idea this, but my journey hosting retreats began in my early 20s, in my very early 20s. And it was not called a retreat, and it didn't have the same format. It didn't go on for so long. But nonetheless, that's what I was doing, and my apprenticeship in learning how to host retreats actually came from being a student at a university called University College Cardiff. And I got exposed to a particular way of being which involved the green medicine. That was the one unifying factor. And as we know about these medicines, these plant medicines, we can divide substances into dominator drugs and partnership plants. The green medicine is a partnership plant. It fosters community, communion, integration, insights, realizations. That's what that medicine's all about. And the Jamaican Rastafarians have a particular phrase for it. It's called Sata. And last year I've been using the phrase silent knowledge to explain what's going on. So I took part in ceremonies. We didn't call them that, but that's what they were. Every single time a group of us got together, it was a ceremony. And I learned about holding space. I learned about giving people the time to be in their process. I learned about the art of working together with music and without music, and how the appropriate music in the right time and how the appropriate set in the setting, so carefully managed, can achieve miraculous results, which is why it is my greatest pleasure to host retreats for people. And back to this film, It's Okay Not to Be Okay, because the film, there are really three main protagonists in it. There's Sangtae, Gangtae, and there's also a fourth protagonist, which is not human, that's Mangtae. And Mangtae is not alive, and yet Mangtae has a significant role in this film too. So the thing about this film, there are three main protagonists. It's not a film, it's a TV series, which means each one lasts for well over an hour, almost the length of a feature film, 16 episodes. It's like watching 16 films. That's what you get from Korea. When I say they go deep, I mean they go deep. They really do go deep. Imagine that amount of time to explore characters, to explore story arcs, to explore origins. And Koreans love secret origins. We have to find out what is the secret origin of as many of the characters as possible, but certainly always axiomatically all the main characters. And it's all about being okay not to be okay. That's what the entire show is about. But what makes it so wickedly beautiful is that there's these three main characters. Now one of them appears to have a obvious disability, the other two appear to be sort of okay, functional. None of them are what you could call normal. In fact, normal doesn't apply to any of the characters in the entire show, I would argue, but that's what makes it so wonderful. So this idea about normal, and it's something that's come up for me hosting retreats over the many years I've done so, is people say, is that normal? Is this normal? I know I always want to laugh, but I know that would be unhelpful, so I reassure them, yes, that's normal. Because let's face it, if you're a human, everything's normal, because that's one of the definitions of being human, is whatever expression you are experiencing is normal for a human being, because we have the widest divergence of behaviours, I would argue, in the known universe. And that might seem a bit flippant, but I'm being less flippant than you might think when I say that. So the one character who appears to be obviously disabled ends up being the one who's actually got the greatest insights, and the one that saves the other two apparently functional, vaguely sort of perhaps slightly normal main characters. So that's the only way I can talk about that show without spoiling it, so I won't say any more than that, other than to say that everything about this show is extraordinary. It's not just the story, it's not just the dynamism and the fascination of the characters, it's not the wonderful sets, it's not the costumes, it's everything added together. It's the setting, the costumes, the characters, the story, the quirks, the mannerisms, it's everything. It's such a deep thrill treat. And here's the other thing. Shania Twain is well known as a singer for not being a country music singer, but for being a crossover performer who actually cannot be contained or confined by a label. And it's the same thing about these Korean TV shows, because yes, it's a comedy, yes, it's a drama, yes, it's a deep psychological thriller, yes, it's all of these things and so much more as well. So my big breakthrough in this retreat I hosted 3 weeks ago is to realise something about myself which I'm still incredibly uncomfortable and uneasy with, which means it's initiation. So it's initiation into identification. So I'm identifying myself more and more with what I feel comfortable to call neurodivergent, and what I feel still uncomfortable, which is the conventional term, which is to talk about a person being autistic, because as soon as you use the word autism, it implies that someone has got something wrong with them. And yet, It's Okay Not to Be Okay is the best exemplar in the modern media of the fact that the person who's the saviour of the three protagonists is the one that's got the label. hanging invisibly around his neck. So that is just so beautiful and so appropriate. And then there's something which I came across about 8 years ago now. I was living in the north of England and I went to Clitheroe Library and I came across this book, and it was black and it was white. And I started reading it. It was about autistic teens. And when I got to a certain point in it, I became aware that actually this book did not start its life as a book. It wasn't written by an author of a book. It was actually an app. It was designed as an app first, but was so successful as an app that the person that created the app turned it into a book because it was so good. And the problem is I don't have any details about this, so I'm going to research and look. I've already started with so far no results. I have to find out the title. I have to find out how to access information for myself again and for other people, because there's so much in it. And one of the things that is the primary postulation of this app and this book with no name is that the next evolution of the human race is from neurotypical into neurodivergence. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel about when I started watching Atypical. I just felt like more, I just want to live in this world. Everything else can just go away. This is now my special interest. My special interest is watching Atypical. And thank God there were a number of seasons of it. And that made up for the fact that the episodes were lamentably short, but we still got into the backstories because we had so many seasons, so it worked so well. And when young Sheldon came along, it's like completely different story, completely different characters, but yes, I'm in this zone. This is where I belong. I belong in this zone. Everything can just disappear, and this is what I'll do. And I can remember having experiences at different times in my life. I had many years with no access to TV. I had a lot of years. No TV, no screens of any kind, living out in nature. Very grateful for all that. But one of the things I remember is that if I watched the TV with other people, they expected to be able to talk and communicate while the show was on. And I could never understand that. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Shut up. I suppose I came from the culture of the cinema, because in the cinema, or the theatre as they call them in America, it's dark and everyone is their own little bubble, and there's just the screen and the experience and each individual. So for me, TV's always been like that. And with one notable exception, one particular relationship I was with, whereby she actually didn't mind me just blurting out my responses, which I still can't understand. Why didn't she tell me to shut up? I don't know. That's just one of the life's mysteries which will never be solved. So I'm so grateful to Nature's Medicine Retreats for all the people that turned up and took a chance on what was an extraordinary experience. So why it was so extraordinary for me is because of all the groups I've ever had, it was the one that actually required the least input from me. I didn't have someone co-hosting, it was simply me, and actually that was fine. And I was grateful to be reminded of that, because I do love co-hosting, I absolutely love it, and yet I also love hosting just me. And they gave me so much space, they demanded so little from me, they were so there, they were so on it. Something needs to be done, they just did it. What I hadn't even had time to turn around to realise, and someone's already done it. I mean, as a person hosting a retreat, that's like a retreat in heaven. And then in the ceremonies themselves, they didn't need anything. They didn't need anything, so long as the space was held, which I do automatically anyway. It meant I can go so deeply into my own process, which is why 3 weeks after the retreat, I'm still in this huge integration phase, which is an initiation, incredibly uncomfortable, at times excruciatingly painful, deeply disturbing, and I am just so grateful for it, because nothing is as it seems, as all shamans know, and the miracle and the magic of life is to throw ourselves into it, to go as deeply as we can, and to mine all the riches and to turn shit into gold, which is the title of a film I made a long time ago, Shit into Gold. Okay, all the love to you, and thank you for enjoying my early morning skyscape. I speak this because there's no way I can stick my head in front of a camera to come out with these words. Thank you, all the love to you, and please do comment. If you wish to subscribe, you're most welcome, and if you activate notifications, you're more than welcome. And I appreciate all the comments, whatever people have to say. I'm always fascinated by entering into any kind of a dialogue on this channel, and I just thank you for your time. All the love to you.